There you go. I'm here. So take it away, Larry.
All right, folks. I do want to remind you when you go to uh, the open mic, please use your mute, if you will, so that we don't step on each other. I don't want him to blow off in on his Camp Malcolm, by the way.
Now, Larry, one more. Larry, excuse me. When you come on, you do not, they tell you to announce yourself. You do not need to do that until you're ready to ask a question. Then just give your first name. But when you come on, just immediately go to mute when you can hear Larry or Tim talking.
Okay, good. So, what I want to do first is to bring you up to date. And this is touchy for me because this is one of those situations, guys, where I've got to kind of walk the line on what I can say versus what I want to say. But there's part of the situation with Iran and the president's moves that I think will help you if you know more of the truth. The truth of the matter is that for the first time we have a president that has called into check Iran. The Ayatollah has forever bullied our president, bullied our government around. And finally, we get President Trump, who refuses to be bullied on behalf of us. And for the first time in a long time, we've got a president that believes in America first. America first and only America first. And the situation that everybody was so afraid of, starting a quote-unquote war, the move he made by hitting the general. Let me tell you, part of the briefing that he gave to Congress, special members of Congress yesterday, informed them that that general was actually in Baghdad, and he was there to oversee an attack on our embassy. He was there to oversee an attack on our embassy, an immediate attack. So the president did what he should have done, and he took him out. Consequently, that saved the embassy from being blown up. Now, once they got him and got some more information from the wreckage, they found out something else that was significant. The Iranians were planning, this general had set up an attack, a terrorist type attack on some key targets in Kurdistan, the Kurd part of Iraq. The point being that they were using ISIS members to head up the attacks up in the Kurdish part of the country, with the design being that after they hit the embassy in Baghdad, then the strikes take place virtually immediately in the Kurdish part of the country with ISIS claiming credit. Then that would obviously imply that the strike on our embassy in Baghdad is part of this ISIS terrorist attack. It was a cover. So the president not only saved the lives of the people in the embassy that were fixing to be blown up, but he also shut down the attack to the targets in the Kurdish part of the country. Now, when it got to the saber rattling, President Trump did something that was very, very incredible. He made it clear to the Ayatollah. I do not know how he did. I don't presume at the way he used to get the message to him, but the message got there quite clearly. Iran has basically 8 major oil fields that produce the majority of their income. Although the 8 oil fields are greatly depleted, they still produce oil the Ayatollah on an endangered species list within his own country. He also pointed out to the Ayatollah that they have 211 what we call cruise and missile sites, 2,011 of them, of which the majority, the great majority of those sites are permanent fixtures for permanent launching facilities. Within 30 seconds, every one of those missile sites would have been vaporized, which would have left Iran with only those cruise missile types left that are mobile. And the problem you got with the mobile launchers is the missiles themselves are much smaller and the payload is drastically reduced. In other words, the power of the bomb they carry is greatly reduced. So in a matter of 30 seconds, devastation would have happened to Iran, and we would have never set a boot, 1 foot on the ground in Iran. Not one. Not 1 foot. The advantage to us having President Trump as our president was really shown clear through this operation, because apparently there was little doubt in the Ayatollah's mind at all, or his advisors. None of his advisors or himself had any doubt that our president will pull the trigger, would pull it. And by taking out the general, he proved he would pull the trigger. We owe this president a lot, because he is straightening out something in the Middle East that's been allowed to go extremely wrong for too long, for far too long. Now, the Ayatollah fired back with, I think it was 15 cruise-type missiles. I do not know, or maybe I can't tell, but how to say this. The Americans were forewarned of his strike, and they were basically given 4 hours prior to the strikes to make sure that the areas that were going to be targeted were empty of any Americans or Iraqis, for that matter, or any significant equipment. Now the question is, and probably will be forever, did he tell the president that? Did they give word to President Trump of the 4-hour warning, et cetera, did the president allow it? It would not surprise me, and this is my opinion, folks, it would not surprise me that President Trump, if asked, would have probably said, okay, as long as you give us warning, in the interest of giving the Ayatollah a way to save face after all the saber rattling that he had done. I do not know that, but it would not surprise me if such an agreement or arrangement was made. Now,
Larry, before you do something else, I know people are having a hard time hearing. So if you come on the conference call, you will be able to hear Larry clearly. We're going to go ahead and keep it going on the YouTube, in case somebody wants to listen later. But I just put in the conference call number.
Mary Ellen, out loud.
Mary Ellen, I'm having a hard time hearing Larry, and I'm on the conference call. I can hear you fine, but I've got it on speakerphone, and I've got the phone against my ear. There was a minute there where Larry got louder for a second.
Well, guys, I'm giving it all I got. I don't have any more.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to put
Let me stop this. See, look, let me do this. Does this help at all?
Oh, yeah. That's a huge difference.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'll do this. I'll hold the phone to me instead of the headset. But Maryland, if you would give the people the number to call in on
Yeah.
the conference call, please.
So you dial 712-451-0725. It's right here underneath. It's here underneath the in the description box at the very end. It is also typed into the chat. So when you dial in that number 712-451-0725, you will be asked for an access code. That is 492-215#. So it's 2 steps to get in. Dial the phone number, then dial the access code. And then you'll be able to talk. Just come in, mute your phone. Once you're on, you hear Larry talking. And then when you're given a chance, you can unmute and ask a question.
All right. So now back to the civilian aircraft, the airliner that crashed. The truth of it is that it was shot down by an Iranian air defense system, a Russian-made surface-to-air missile. Now, what happened is that most civilian craft, certainly airliners in that region, they are provided with a beep. I'm going to call it a beep. I don't know what else you call it, but they're provided with a beeper so that it is declared that they're civilian and they're not supposed to be shot at. Now, in this case, we do not know whether the pilot did not turn on that beeper, failed to turn it on, or whether it didn't work when he turned it on, or whether the Iranian system didn't pick it up and then shot it down. But it's very clear that's what happened. If you're wondering why Iran is not turning loose of the black box, which of course will tell the story. Remember, folks, according to international law, if Iran shot that thing down, apparently by mistake even, if they shut it down, they're going to be faced with tremendous money and lawsuits, the country. And according to the international rules, Iran would have to pay these families that money. So Iran, just so you know, is going to fight it any way they can and try to keep it murky to where it can't be proved that they did it, even though it was an accident. It's not them trying to deny it because, you know, they want everybody to know they didn't shoot it down on purpose. It's not that at all. It's just that Iran will be facing incredible lawsuits and money that they do not have. So I don't know if any of this helps you, but it should give you a better understanding of where we are. One last thing. You will notice that now Pelosi is coming back talking about the articles of impeachment. What Pelosi and the Democrats are doing, if the raid where they killed the general and all this stuff having to do with Iran starts getting played up well for the president, then they will bring out all of this impeachment stuff all over again and they'll start it back up. And that will take over the news, and the news will hardly talk at all about the killing of the general and the good things the president has done with how he handled it. Now, if the media is successful in making the raid on the general and all the stuff the president has done relative to the situation, if that starts playing bad, then Pelosi will be burying the impeachment stuff, and it won't come out right now. They'll hold it off until this other stuff dies down. So it's all just a big game. It's a big game, but the problem is we, the American people, are paying the price for it. So, folks, that's kind of an update. And now I'd like to bring on Tim Malcolm. Tim, what's the name of your company, please?
MBT Custom Rifles. It's
Say it
Malcolm
again.
Ballistic Tool, MBT.
N as in Nancy.
No, M is in Malcolm, B is in Ballistic, T is in Tool.
Malcolm Ballistic Tools.
We build precision rifles and do general gunsmithing.
All right. Well, you know, Tim, in Virginia, the big flap is coming, having to do with the Second Amendment.
Yes.
Are you aware of what that's about? Do you know what the big mess is over?
Well, I mean, the big mess is that they did not get to the polls, and they let the Democratic majority take over, and they're doing what Democrats do, and I've said this lots of times, you know, that the reason why, if anybody wonders why we need an electoral college, you need look no further than the states, because the states don't have an electoral college. Okay, so in the United States, the big states of California and New York and Chicago, etc., you know, these big areas, they do not control the entire United States. The electoral college makes sure that the little people have a voice. That does not exist within the state. And what has happened in Virginia is that this small area that is a liberal cesspool is exerting their will over the majority of the state that absolutely doesn't believe that way. They don't live that way. Same thing goes in Chicago. They have these horrible gun laws that most of the state does not agree with one little bit. If you took a census by county and kind of did it like the electoral college, it would swing way the other way. So what we're seeing there in Virginia is what happens when people in the big cities sit on their hands. And since there is no electoral college on the state level, I'm not sure if there's anything that'll ever be done about that. But the repercussions, you know, it's a dangerous thing, because this is an ignition point. You know, on a countrywide level, you know, over the entire U.S., you know, the electoral college makes sure that we don't devolve into civil war with every single election process that happens. We've got the majority vote, and we've got the electoral college, and both complement each other. But what I worry about with a place like Virginia is that this could be the tinder, the small fire that creates the big one. And it's very, very concerning, and something that we're just keeping our eyes on.
Well, now, are you hearing from your customers, people that you frequent with, manufacturers, etc., are they talking about this
All the
blow
time.
up in Virginia?
Yeah, all the time. Of course, I'm in Arkansas, so there's very little influence that we have over another state. But what we are doing is we're preparing Arkansas for the eventuality of this happening. And, you know, there's folks that are reminding people very surely that, you know, there's lots of folks that I hear that say, oh, well, we don't have to worry about that here. We're sewn up. And I say, brother, not so. Yeah, we are one election away from having the same thing happen here. It can change in the blink of an eye, overnight. So what we're already doing is we're already putting together sanctuary cities, and we're already getting ourselves into a position to fight this.
Good.
Well, it's
Now, folks, if anybody's got a question for Tim, gotta jump in.
Larry, I was going to jump in and say, you know, there are so many counties in Virginia that have, the majority of them have declared themselves sanctuary counties because of the gun issues. But the legislation now that they have voted in is going forward with extreme legislation. And it's problematic.
Well, where this is going to end up, folks, and why I'm concerned about it, as I'm sure Tim and everybody in the industry having to do with firearms,
question that's never been correctly answered or thoroughly explored, Larry, because it costs blood to do so. And these Democrats are perfectly willing to spill a little blood to find out how far they can go across that red line.
Well, remember most of you about Colorado. Colorado with marijuana. That became an issue. Colorado, the state, voted to legalize it, but it was still against federal law. So people were going into business, selling it, buying it, etc. But then they were breaking federal law. So what the federal government agreed to do in that case, instead of to blow up, all that happened was the federal government just kind of looked the other way. If you wonder how the whole Colorado marijuana issue ended up, it ended up with the state doing what it wanted to do, and the federal government just kind of looking the other way.
I think you're exactly right, Larry, and I would postulate that is exactly what's given these folks the gumption to do what they're doing now. You know, they're going and betting that the government is just going to look the other way and not settle this issue. And, you know, it's...
Well, that's where it's going to get different between the marijuana issue and the right to own a pair of arms is a very, very important right to many, many Americans. Many. You know, there's just tons of people that don't smoke or do marijuana, don't know nothing about it. So you know what? It doesn't matter to them.
All I'm saying is that that's what gave them the gumption to do what they're doing. They said, well, it worked with marijuana. This is a precedent where state challenged government and state won. And, you know, they're trying to do the same thing with firearms. They're going to be sorely disappointed. This is something that people are willing to fight for. This is a ditch a lot of people are willing to die in.
I'm going to butt in here. We've got some discussion going on in the chat. We've got somebody who's come in totally off topic, and I'm going to ask you, please, in the chat, stay on topic. If you want to interact about what we're talking about, that's one thing, but this is not a place for some of the other discussion, Rachel, that you're bringing up, even though it may be very, very important. It is important, but we're going to stay on topic here today. Thank you very much.
Yes, and guys, once again, let me add to that. This program is about the things the host, that we choose to talk about. And when you come in discussing other issues that you feel are important, and probably are, you distract people. People can't read what you're saying at the same time listen to this conversation. You know, Tim's gone out of his way to be here on this program with us, and I don't want people not to hear what he's got to say or to be able to ask a question they want answered. So please, I will ask nicely, please deal in the chat room with what we're talking about on the program. Please, if you don't, that's rude. And I know you don't mean to be rude, any of you. Now, back to what we were saying, Tim. This is what scares me about what's going on in Virginia, and we've talked about it on this program before. I'm afraid this is an explosion point. It's not going to go away. People are not going to be satisfied with just the government wink, looking the other way. It's not going to happen. And I fear you're right. Blood could be shed. We don't want that. We don't want that at all. But this is one of the fundamental rights that true conservatives, gun owners, hold very dear. And they're not going to be pushed around about it.
Well, Larry, can I put something out there? I don't know if this makes sense to other folks, but it makes total sense to me. Can I just say something real quick?
Well, of course you can.
You know, in World War II, I ask folks sometimes who won World War II. I say, oh, the United States did. But really, you know, in my mind, Sweden won World War II. Those Norwegian areas, they remained control. And I would just like to humbly point out what people are doing in this country from my perspective, and the thing that I love most about my job is that we build the most accurate rifles in the country, okay? And they are training themselves and arming themselves with incredibly accurate firearms, which is exactly what the Norwegian people did and the Swedish, okay? When Germany tried to roll into Sweden, okay? And again, we're talking about minimizing bloodshed. When Germany tried to roll into Sweden, they were stopped cold because these people were expert marksmen. And they invented biathlon for the Germans, okay? These guys ski from slope to slope, and they take precision shots, okay? One thing that I'm seeing is an explosion of interest in precision firearms. And all I'm going to say is that, you know, this is a good thing. And this will stop something and at least minimize the fallout, in my opinion.
I can agree with that. There's no doubt in my mind that gun owners today, especially those that are concerned enough about what's going on. I mean, we've got people, Tim, going to Virginia for this protest from all over the country. It's not just people in Virginia protesting. I mean, people coming in from all parts of this country. People that are that concerned about this freedom that this governor's trying to backdoor take away from us.
I agree. And, you know, the thing is, the precedent was set. You could see this starting back in, 2014, 2015, when Nevada, when militias poured in from all over, and they stopped the grave injustice from happening out there. And this is what's neat. The NRA they've been doing their thing, but you know the NRA is not going to do your fighting for you. You know, we've got a conservative faction in this country. The conservative movement in this country is such that at this point people are mobilizing, and they're actually getting out there and they're making their voices be heard, and they're showing up and being counted at great risk to themselves. And that it is actually stopping bloodshed and injustice from happening. Not a shot was fired in Nevada. And, you know, I love that. I purely adore that. People are showing up and being counted. And it's, you know,
let me tell you, folks, there's something different this time. And that's Donald Trump. We never had a president. We have never, in this debate over the Second Amendment, we never had a president that was as committed to standing up for the rights of people to own and bear and keep firearms as we do with President Trump. And just like the Ayatollah found out in Iran, this president doesn't just use words. He stands behind what he believes.
Right.
And I think the Democrats are making a tremendous mistake, especially that governor in Virginia, because typically the Democratic-led governments around the country, they've always been able to count. They've always been able to count on the liberal bias within the federal government to work in concert with the kind of things they're pulling off or trying to pull off. They're not going to have that this time with President Trump. It ain't going to happen that way. So the outcome for the Democrats, I will tell them, it's not going to be quite the way you think it is based on past performances by the federal government. It's not. I don't know how it's going to end up, but it's not going to be the same. Now, Mary Ellen, anybody got any questions? We've been kind of dominating the...
There was one question right at the very beginning that you did not address, is about Pelosi and the War Powers Act they're trying to put to pass, and how limiting will that be on the president?
Well, what's going on with this vote for the War Powers Act? They're trying to limit President Trump's ability to be
say, Larry, that's fair ball politically, wouldn't you say? It ain't pretty to watch, but my big question is, where were all the conservatives when Obama was violating law left, right, stop?
Right.
Why weren't we doing that? It's obvious. What they're doing here is it's fair ball. It's dirty ball, but it's at least with that part, you can say anything you want. You can float the bill you want to float, but where the hell were all the conservatives when Obama was actually violating law wholesale?
Yeah.
And
Cam, that's the problem.
Once it's done, once the precedent is set, is it not true that they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, setting up the next liberal president to receive the same treatment?
Cam, that was what I was fixing to say. The problem with all of this stuff the Democrats are willing to do to get rid of Trump and to stop him from being effective is that it has lasting effect. So what they do by impeaching Trump over things that were not high crimes and misdemeanors, they set a precedent to where the next Democratic president, if there is one, I hate to say, the next Democratic president is facing the same type of torture and punishment. Then, with the War Powers Act, they're not just restricting President Trump, they're restricting the next presidents from now on.
Yeah.
This is what scares me about what scares me about the Democrats, folks, is they don't care about us. They don't care about the country. They are so focused on destroying President Trump that they will literally destroy our families. They'll destroy our way of life. They'll destroy our future just to achieve their political agenda. And it's wrong. It's wrong. Now, I do hope that however they vote on this War Powers Act, I do hope the Senate will stand firm. I hope McConnell will stand firm, vote it down. But I do know that if it passes, even the Senate, the president will veto it. And I don't believe there's any way, Tim or Mary Ellen or any of you, I don't believe there's any way that if Trump vetoes it, that they can bring it back and get 2/3 to vote down his veto. I just don't think they can do that. So
I don't think so either.
It may be moot what they're trying to do, but it's still just another example of how they're willing to destroy the safety of this nation just to get at Trump, to stop him. And what's crazy, guys, they're trying to stop him from being successful for the country, for us, the people. Look, it doesn't benefit Trump. It doesn't benefit his wealth any, but he makes the country work the way it should. It doesn't make him any wealthier just because the economy's doing great. I mean, he gets better too, but everybody else does. They want to destroy this country. They, in their plans, have been for many, many years to take this nation so far down to its knees that we beg for them to take control and save us. That's what they want. They want us to beg them to take it over. And that's why I told you what I did. I don't think you've heard it, Tim, but folks, I've told you that if Trump loses, likely as not the Senate will go Democrat, so now they've got the president, the Senate, and the House. Within 6 months, they will have nationalized our financial institutions. Why? How can they do that? We'll beg them to do it. They will crash the market. They will crash the economy so bad that people will get so scared that they're losing everything that people will literally beg the Democratic leadership to step in and do something to save their money. When in fact, that's the trap they've set for us.
Okay, can I ask a few? I have a few questions here, Larry. The government's first order of business is protecting the American people. How come Pelosi and the rest can't be charged with treason for putting the lives of all Americans in jeopardy? And then somebody else asked about why can't we use the Logan Act because of the dealings with Kerry and so on. You did answer that yesterday, XPR. He did answer that yesterday, but we'll answer it again today for you.
Well, let me answer all of that this way. Where I think the confusion comes, if you or I or Tim, if we went around and did the things that are damaging to the nation that Pelosi and John Kerry and all of them are doing, we would be tried for treason or sedition. We would. But remember, members of the House and the Senate are removed from many of the laws that we have to be governed by. They're not governed by those laws. They've got the ability to do things that would put us in jail. So I don't believe there's any way legally that we could go after them due to the waiver they've got by being members of Congress or members of the government. I do believe John Kerry has exposure, but then we get back to the same old problem. Who's going to call to prosecute? And even if Barr prosecutes him, where's he going to get a court to go into that will treat it fairly? Does that help?
I hope that helps.
Huh?
I hope that helps. I'm not seeing a reaction from.
Well, I know it's not going to be the answer people want to hear, but that is the true answer.
He okay. His reaction is, what kind of messed up BS is this?
Well, I got to tell you, you just about hit the nail on the head. This is the crisis we're in, folks. We have got the government. They have put us in a position to where these kind of things that they're doing that are so very, very wrong, over the years, by us not paying attention, they've been able to pass laws to protect them and to facilitate this type of junk. It's sad. It's terrible. And that's why it's hard to fix it. But we've got to fix it, or we're going to lose it. What else you got?
We don't have anything else right now, but what I'm going to say, is it fair law? XPR asked. No, of course this isn't fair law. I'm going to say that look up Alexander Tytler, Tytler, and you can Google his name. You know, he said that democracy doesn't work because as soon as a simple majority, just 51%, realizes they can vote to themselves largesse, it's over, and you will just disintegrate until you end up, they will have everything, and you will end up with a dictator. And that's what they have done. They realized how much they could do for just themselves, and they did it. And we were not watching and paying attention. We trusted them to do what was right, and they were not trustworthy. Exactly.
Anybody on the call got a question? If you do, just kind of jump in. If you're out there. Tim, I want to get to more of a mundane, but I think it's a significant question. We've got a lot of ladies on this phone. And what is the best firearm for protection at the home for ladies that may not have the muscle strength or the ability to withstand the kick from a lot of weapons? What do you think women should get for the best defense at home? Not in the car, at home.
That's a really touchy question. I mean, scientifically and by polls, I can tell you without a doubt an AR-15 is the best. It absolutely cannot be beat. The AR-15 is the easiest weapon to get trained on. It is the easiest weapon to control, and even a very small person with very limited strength can use an AR-15 for personal defense. It's excellent, absolutely excellent. The problem is that many women do not feel, they feel very intimidated by such a scary looking weapon. And I think that if they were to come by the shop and I was to put different firearms in their hands, they would find that the easiest weapons to use are the ones that look scariest. You would find the AR-15 is excellent. You'd find a woman is incredibly adept at shooting a 1911 pistol. It's a smaller shooter they look, and the less assuming they appear, the worse they are. The very much worse they are to control. So,
and let me say this to the ladies listening. Some of you don't know what an AR-15 is. Look at our military. When you see our soldiers walking around, what they're carrying is a military version of the AR-15.
That's right. It's not the same thing. They look the same on the surface, but it's not the same.
Right. It's not the same thing. Now, the 1911 that he's referring to, that is a pistol that was carried by most of the officers in World War II and even on up into Vietnam. My problem with it, and I love the 1911. That's my pistol of choice. But I can see where it gets heavy to a lady. It's hard. I love what you just said.
You said hard defense, Larry.
Right.
You're not carrying it, you're shooting it. And it's very easy to control. Now, the thing is, I can tell you that if you want to, everything you do past that point, those two that I just mentioned, is a compromise, okay? And it's not a compromise for easier use. It's a compromise that will require a little more training on your part than on their part. A little more training, but it may be easier for them to swallow. So here's another. If I was going to compromise down from the AR-15 and the 1911 pistol, I would say a pump 870 shotgun. Don't worry about getting buckshot. Just use birdshot. At close range, birdshot is devastating, and it's very easy to control recoil. And I would say a Glock 19. A Glock 19 is a very easy weapon to use and very, very effective. The Glock 19 is very, very easy to handle for a woman, and the handle is small enough that most women can get a grip on it, and it's pretty effective.
Yes, and I would go back, Tim, to what you said in the beginning. And people, please, it's a personal choice we're talking about anyway. But in the beginning, I would warn you, a lot of the smaller pistols that seem like they'd be awfully easy, they're lightweight, they'll be real easy to handle. The drawback of those type of weapons is far outweighs the neatness of how small, light, or whatever they are. You don't need a pistol that when you shoot, the round that you fire is big enough to do any good.
Well, and I can illustrate this with something that just happened yesterday, Larry. My secretary, or my cleaning lady, she came by and she was asking me if I could give her some shooting lessons because she hasn't shot in a very long time, which is the number one thing that I have trouble with women folks with, is they don't like shooting. They will not invest the time to get trained. And it doesn't take a lot. It's just once a month, go out and run a few magazines through your firearm of choice. Well, this lady came in and she had a little bitty Derringer, a little 5-shot revolver, New England Firearms, fantastic quality, but little bitty 22 revolver that only carries 5 shots. And it's so small that it's very hard to hold. And it's cute, and it's pretty, and it doesn't look scary, okay? That was the weapon she chose. Well, I loaded her up with 5 shots of 22, and I put a can on the ground, and I said, here's your target. It's 10 feet away. Hit it. She emptied that revolver 5 times before she put a hole in the can. And granted, it was accurate enough to sort of kind of get the job done, but we're talking about a tiny little 22 coming out of a 1-inch barrel. Once we were done, she was really excited because she finally got to where she could hit the can with that tiny gun. It took her about 30 or 40 shots to the point where she could do it. But the next thing I did, I pulled my sidearm from my holster, which is a Glock 17, holds 18 rounds of 9mm. And I've got a red dot sight on it. It's really scary looking. It's a big gun with all kinds of bells and whistles on it, and that's what I carry every day. But quit looking at how it looks. I put it in her hands, and I said, put the red dot on the target and squeeze the trigger. And she wore that can out. She walked it out to 50 yards, and she was still hitting it. The difference was incredible right there. To her, it was the difference in night and day. And she said, well, my gosh, I was afraid to shoot something like this because it looked so scary. And I told her, we'll be sure to get you into something like this if you feel comfortable with it. It totally opened her eyes and changed her entire perception of self-defense. And that's all I wanted to say about that.
Yeah. And folks, that's the key to all of this. Y'all had better get ready. I'm not saying anything is definitely going to happen. I can't tell you that. But I can tell you this. Look at Chicago. Look at St. Louis. Look at Baltimore. Any day, any one of us in the communities we live could be overrun by these massive gangs that are going in all over the country. And the safety of your neighborhood is going to get down if you're not careful to your ability to defend yourself.
Well, I would say this also, Larry. The likelihood of having to defend yourself, readiness is a mental attitude. The likelihood of having to defend yourself, or the odds, have nothing to do with minimum preparedness. So, what's the likelihood that your house will catch on fire and you'll come out of your bedroom into a blaze in your kitchen? Not real likely. I mean, it's much more likely than a gun battle, but it's not very likely. So, considering that it's maybe one in 1,000 families will have a kitchen fire, does that mean that you throw out the fire extinguisher and keep a squirt bottle of water on the counter? You see that you need minimum preparedness. You've got to have enough to deal with that catastrophe, and the severity of the catastrophe dictates.
And remember this: you get homeowners insurance for fires, just like he's talking, with a 1 in 1,000 chance it'll actually happen. But you get insurance. What do you do about somebody coming in your home and trying to take what you have? But you don't have insurance for that. Right. Matter of fact, Tim, unless I'm wrong, the only insurance you've got for something like that is the possession of a firearm, right?
Yes. I mean, I'm not one that says, if somebody comes in, if all they're wanting to do is take my stuff, I can always get more stuff. Let it go. I'm not going to turn it into a life and death situation over something like that. However, if they come in to get my stuff and in the process threaten my life, that's probably the last thing that particular hombre will ever do.
That's right. Now I hear somebody talking to somebody. Want to ask them a question? If you're out there on the line, step up. If I don't hear from you, we're going to keep going. Now, Ken, you know my favorite. My favorite is this. For a woman, even for me in my weakened condition, I like, and you've seen it, I like just the old double-barrel shotgun. It don't break down. It's not fancy, but I at least have 2 rounds that I know will go off. And I have the Stagecoach model. maybe not the 12 gauge, but
No, I disagree with it for a simple fact that it takes more training to use. One of the biggest problems with a stagecoach gun, and I'm not throwing down on your firearm choice, Larry. I mean, my gosh, with your background, you could probably give Chuck Norris a run for his money. But the thing with a stagecoach gun, in any break open shot.
First off, folks, let me tell you, a stagecoach gun is one simply that has a shorter barrel.
Right, 18-inch barrel. It's got 2 shots. You break it open, stuff in 2 shells, snap it shut, and go boom, boom. But the problem is that you have to shoot it from the shoulder. If you shoot it from the hip, which you often have to do in an enclosed environment like a home, you have to shoot from the hip, and when that gun recoils, it often will take that lever that you slide with your thumb sideways, and it will jam it back into your hand, and it will incapacitate your right hand, which is not a good thing. That's the only problem I've got with that, Larry. I mean, I agree with you with the reliability, and I agree with you that the shotgun is a great thing, but a pump action will work even if you're shooting from the hip and the barrel is just 12 inches past your face, the front of you.
Now, the next weapon that I choose is a wheel gun, just a revolver. Now, not a 22, of course. But once again, I like a wheel gun because now if it's 6 shot, I load it with 5 so that I don't have one under the hammer if I drop it. But, you know, you squeeze the trigger. If it don't work, you pull the hammer back, squeeze again. They're not complicated. What's your feelings about that?
No, wheel gun is fantastic. I mean, a revolver is the most effective way to defend your life, and we've got hundreds of years of proof of that. Honestly, if I was not in a position where I feel like it's very likely that if something happened where I had to draw my gun, I would have multiple assailants to deal with, I would be carrying a revolver. In fact, I did for some time. A 38 special revolver will take down anything that you need it to take care of. It's not powerful, but it's not underpowered. It's just right. I'm all for it. Now, obviously,
but you've got hesitation.
If you get into a situation where you need more than 5 shots or 6, in my case, you know, there's a very, very big problem with reloading that thing. It's very slow.
That's right.
And you only get 6 compared to the 9mm that's on my hip now. I have 18 shots before I have to reload, and it's got the same power as the 38 special.
Now,
and the reload takes half a second.
Yeah, I don't know if any of y'all understand what we're talking about, some of you ladies, unless you're somewhat familiar with firearms. But what Tim and I are trying to do is educate you first on picking a weapon. And then in another program, we're going to talk to you about things you can do to train, to get better, you know, to be able to use it. But the first step for all of us is to pick the weapon that we're comfortable with, that we can use. But I am telling you this, the day's coming when you're going to have to arm up. You may not want to. Children around, it's always scary. I mean, there's a million reasons why you have to be careful with guns, but the time is coming, I fear, where just for your own peace of mind, you need to have one that you can get to. Now, there's my next question. You know, Tim, I hear all the time people get a gun for protection, right? They get a pistol, whatever. Let's say they get a pistol. Sure. Well, the next thing they do is they get, well, we got to store it somewhere in case the grandkids come over. I want to make sure it's safe. So I'm going to get a gun safe and lock it up and keep it in a locked gun safe. Or another practice that I hear about all the time is I'm going to get it, put the pistol in a drawer, and then I'm going to put the shells up in the closet up on the top rack where they can't get to it. Now, I just made a bunch of mistakes. What were they, man?
Well, I mean, for thing, if you need the firearm, I mean, I say all the time, you don't keep your fire extinguisher in the attic. That sums it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you cannot limit your ability to get to your firearm. Honestly, I mean, you've got two conflicting things here. You've got young ones that you love. You don't want them to get hurt. You don't want them to hurt themselves. But you also don't want other people to hurt them. So you need to strike a compromise. The firearm must be loaded and ready. And I personally, Larry, I mean, I believe in education. Now, I've got a young lady living in this house with me. She's my daughter. She's 10 years old. She has been completely born and raised into the world of firearms. Now, I work out of my home, and the shop is attached to the home. This young lady has been surrounded by loaded firearms her entire life. She ain't got a chance. Okay? If I could not make a living otherwise. So I'm saying, unless you have a child who has autism or a child who just has a learning disability of some sort, it is very, very possible to educate your children and take away the curiosity of the item. Okay, you tell them this is a gun. You get in big, big trouble if you touch this. You may not touch it, and you let them know. Just get it out of the way. They know. Trust me, they know. Kids aren't stupid. They know there's a gun in the house, and if you've said nothing about it, you've protected them from it. You've also you've increased their curiosity tenfold. And I think that's a mistake. But that's how I handled it. And I think the proof is in the pudding. My daughter is 10 years old now, and she shoots all the time with me. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, in my case, my daughter's a better shot than I am. I would not want to mess with her or my wife, either one. But I will say this, when it comes, if you're going to have a weapon in the home, keep it ready to be used. And if you've got children coming and you're concerned about them getting it, well, when they're coming, it's okay. Lock it up when they're there. If that's the case, if you haven't trained them or you're worried about it, lock it up for that period of time. But the whole point, folks, of having a weapon to protect yourself is to have it accessible where you can protect yourself with it. Please.
Okay, we got a question here, Larry.
Yes, ma'am.
If there comes a time they try to take our guns, will they go after concealed carry gun owners first?
When it comes time for them to take our guns, I'll let Tim answer in his way. My answer is going to be, when it comes time, if they pull off being able to confiscate our guns, what's going to happen first is they're going to go to the registered guns, registered weapons. They know what you got. They'll come and demand to get them. The trick is, I try to keep things that are not registered. They don't know you got that. Tim, what's your...
well, first of all, just speaking of gun registration, there is no such thing outside the state of California or Illinois, okay, or New York. That 4473 is not gun registration. The system is so broken, they don't know who has what and where they have it, okay? And we can have that conversation another time, but trust me, that is not gun registration. As far as a concealed carry license, there are certain states where it is a good thing to have. In this state, we have open carry. Oklahoma is open carry. Arkansas is open carry. Kansas is open carry. You can carry in Arkansas, you can carry open or concealed at your leisure. Now, the thing is, if you have put your hand up and say, I need a permission slip from the government to do my right, to exercise my rights, I have a problem with that in and of itself. Okay? Also, though, sometimes there is a good reason. All I would say is look very closely and very realistically at whether that license gives you any additional power whatsoever. Lots of folks just assume they have to have it. No. Here in Arkansas, if you just put a gun under your coat and you carry it, you can walk into with that firearm legally, you have much more power having done that than if you put your hand up and say, hey, I need a permission slip to exercise my right.
Yeah, let me back that up. Folks. If you get a concealed carry, or if you raise your hand, as Tim says, and get permission slip, let me tell you what just happened. You can't get within 1,000 feet of a school or a church. Now, how are you going to drive down? How are you going to drive around in your town and not come within 1,000 feet of a school or a church? I'm sorry?
You got to violate the terms of your concealed carry just to go about your daily life, which is why you got it in the first place.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And people, even intelligent people, you know, really, Larry, what it comes down to is that they're very, very concerned about putting a gun on. They're not used to it. They think they're doing something that's dangerous and scary, and they want comfort, and they go to the government for that.
The government has done what it has done in so many areas, guys. They have got people scared to the point to where you think, just because you're carrying a gun with you, you think you're breaking the law, and it scares you.
Right, which it's kind of written into the Constitution. You can do this. Now, certain states, people have they've been so absent from this issue for so long that laws have been passed that you may not carry a gun without that concealed carry. And if you travel through different states, okay, this is important, Larry. If I could just camp on this issue for a second. If you have to travel through different states, a concealed carry gives you a lot of power when you're traveling. And it sometimes will make it so that, yeah, you don't need it in your place, and there's absolutely no reason to have it in most places. But that one state you got to pass through, it could actually make the difference for you. In that case, I would say, don't just go to your local government and say, hey, let me do whatever you say is necessary to get a concealed carry. Like, for instance, in Arkansas, they've just recently added some verbiage into the paper you sign when you take that class, where you give up all rights to your medical information as long as you carry that license. If you actually use the gun for the reason that you're carrying it, you will be defending yourself in court. Let me make you this promise. You will be defending yourself in court. When you're defending yourself in court, trust me, the prosecuting attorney is not on your side. They are out to convict you. That is their job. Their job is to find a way, any way, to put you behind bars. That's why you're there. And if they have free reign to crawl through your medical records and find any excuse that they can bend any way they want to incarcerate you, that would be the dumbest thing you ever signed in your life, to give them free reign to crawl through your medical history. Well, here's the workaround. You know, there's guys that come into the shop and they're telling me, gosh, you know, what do I do? If you're saying that I can't do this, I would never do that. And I tell them, you let me know, outside of military service, when you ever, as a citizen, sign a piece of paper that takes that much leeway with your rights and your privacy. They said, well, what do we do? And I said, there's a workaround. Listen to me. There's a workaround. If you do some research, a neighboring state, I want to say it's Mississippi, one of these neighboring states, they will issue you an out-of-state concealed carry license that does not have that verbiage in the paperwork. You go to a different state than your own, get your license there, do your research, get your license there, and when I say research, just print off the papers and read them. And ask, what are your rules with this license, and what am I giving up? You know, you can go over there, get your license, and guess what? Arkansas has reciprocity with it. So guess what? You got a concealed carry in Arkansas as well. And you never had to give up all your rights. Just be careful. Read. Be intelligent with this stuff.
And I remember, Tim, when I went and was told, you know, it was a big thing for a while to get concealed and carry. I went to one class, and in that class, they told us what we were giving up. And I promise you, folks, getting that license opened me up more trouble than I was without it. And the instructor asked him, and he said, well, yeah, that's right.
Exactly right. You went to an honest class, Larry. Lots of the classes, they're not going to tell you that. They're there to make money and roll you through there as fast as they can.
Well, folks, I'm telling you, you better start looking at defending yourself, all of you.
We have two questions.
Getting back to the main question, if the government comes looking to take firearms, my answer is yes. If you have a concealed carry, you have just painted a huge target on your back, and it better have been worth it. You know, in the short term, worth it for what would happen in the long term. Now, just buying a firearm from the store is not gun registration. You can do that. That's not a problem. They do not have that good a tab as you think they do on that. That's not true. You can buy a firearm and fill out that paperwork. All they know is that you bought a firearm. They have no idea what kind. You know, I don't have a problem with the government knowing that I have firearms. If you've ever filled out one of those, you're toast. If that's the case, half the folks in the country have firearms. You're hidden in a very, very big pool of people. Okay. Now, what Larry said though is actually true. Trust me. Mark my words. They will not come confiscating weapons until they've passed actual gun registration. That's the only reason why I'm sitting here being very, very clear that what we have now is not gun registration. If gun registration comes to a city near you, you will know it. Because you will have to take your firearms in to the police department and get them registered. If that happens, confiscation is on its way. If it ever happens, it is time to start screaming right then, because confiscation is next. You mark my word. There is historical backing for this.
Well, let me tell you guys the truth. The truth. Any registration, anything the government does to control your right to own a firearm or not, doesn't really matter, because the bad guys, they don't go by those laws. They got them. They got guns. They're going to get them no matter how tight a regulation or rule is put out. We'll be the ones obeying the laws. We're not the ones that are going to rob anybody in the first place. The bad guys are going to have them. And if you want to stop the risk of gun confiscation, you got to hear me. It's simple. It's simple. The election in 2020. Vote back in President Trump. He is our safest thing we have to protect our rights to own guns.
Right.
And then the other thing I would say is look at your politicians, your local and state and national politicians. Judge them. Judge them. And don't go voting for people that in any way have any desire on putting gun laws out. Folks, until they win, and they have not won yet, we still own this country. They don't. They don't. But we've got to stand up this time like we've never done before. And we're going to have to get up and get out and vote. And we're going to have to make educated votes.
We've got two quick questions. I know we're out of time. Two quick questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible some places to carry without a permit, and where do you buy a gun?
You want to take those?
Yeah, there's lots of places you can carry without a permit. Basically, any place that has a sign on the door saying no guns, that's the only place you cannot carry. Okay? And this is very, very dependent on your state. Okay? I'm talking about I'm in the South here. Typically, if there's no sign, then you can carry.
Right. What about this? What about a church in the South? If you're in a southern state, most likely, unless there are laws prohibiting it. But if there's not a sign or there are no laws, what about a church?
The church is absolutely private property. Okay, it's at your discretion, but I would definitely contact the pastor or find out who your defense ministry head is. I am head of the defense ministry at my church. If somebody comes up to me and asks if they can carry a gun, I'm going to tell them, please do. Okay.
Now, what about a school?
Schools are absolutely off limits. Do not do that unless you have very, very good reason to do so. Okay, because you are taking your freedom in your hands if you do that.
Now, another place is a bar. Now, folks, I'm going to give you my version of a bar 410 does. Alcohol and guns don't mix. So I wouldn't. Now, Jim,
if we're talking about legally able, if you have a concealed carry license, you may not, usually. If you do not have a concealed carry, you may.
Okay. What's the other question, Mariana?
Where do you buy a gun? Where to buy a gun?
You can buy a firearm at any sporting goods store that sells them, or out of the paper. You get your local paper. You can buy there. There's also online sources such as Gunbroker, Arms List, these auction sites. It's just like eBay, except it's for guns. Okay. And
now, if you buy online a firearm, they will not be able to ship it to your home.
Correct.
They'll have to ship it to a registered gun dealer in your area, and you pick it up from them.
Yes, unless
now here's one, Tim.
You've got to get a FFL in your area to receive the firearm for you. Unless you're building an 80% firearm from a kit, in which case you can have the entire firearm delivered to your house, and you have to finish that firearm. That's
now, can they buy firearms from you, Tim? Can they buy firearms from you? Can this audience buy weapons from you?
No, we do not sell firearms here. I enhance firearms to your liking, and we build precision rifles, and we do enhancements for all firearms. But we do not sell firearms.
Can this audience call you for counsel and advice when they're fixing to make a purchase?
It's a very big part of my job, and they can feel free to do so. The area code is 501-470-9599.
Say that again.
501-470-9599.
Now, folks, let me say for Tim, I think the world of him. He has worked on my weapons. And if there's anybody, well, I did it the other day. I called him about a question about a gun. If there's anybody I would call, it would be Tim. And I would suggest y'all use the same. Don't time up forever talking stuff, but if you've got a legitimate question and you want to know from somebody that knows, he knows most all firearms capabilities, limits, etc., call him.
We can usually get you fixed up.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
What about any thoughts about a 410 revolver?
Yeah, like a Taurus Judge, etc.
Yes, sir.
What about it?
Any thoughts about carrying a 410 revolver or smaller?
Well, the 410 revolver is best used as a snake charmer. It's very good in Louisiana and places like this where there's a lot of water moccasins. There's almost nothing out there that works as good as a 5-shot revolver that's shooting 410. Okay. Now, if we're talking self-defense, then I would say that it works as good as the next. I would definitely be using slugs. But it's, again, remember, 5 shots. And how much do you practice? Well, remember, 410 is very, very expensive. So how much practice can you afford to do? This is the biggest reason that I preach 9mm. It's not that it's the most powerful thing in the world. It's that it's powerful enough and you can afford to practice, which is number one.
Caller, what kind of 410 pistol are you talking about? Have you got one?
No, I was looking at our Fleet Farm, and they have one for about $250.
So what are you using it for?
Well, I was wondering about this defense, you know.
Yes. Well, there's a certain ammunition. I cannot remember it off the top of my head. I think it's made by Winchester, but I could be wrong. You'll know it when you see it. It shoots 3 discs of copper in the form of a slug. They come apart as soon as they exit the barrel. That, my friend, is very devastating defense ammo. And yeah, the 410 revolver is very, very capable of saving your life.
Now, caller, I like the 410 for defense purposes because I am one that worries a lot, not about what I hit with it, but what I miss. You know, I don't like shooting off rounds in a city or a town or in a parking lot at Walmart or wherever I'm at, when I've got a round that can go 5 miles and kill a baby, in a bedroom. I like to know the range of the shell I'm shooting. I want something that'll do the damage that I'm shooting at, but I don't want a round that goes on forever, like some of the high-powered weapons do. And in that event, the 410 is perfect.
I totally agree with Larry. Absolutely.
All right, we have one more question, and then I think we need to stop. Somebody asked, why are Trump and Barr not talking about this unconstitutional gun grab in Virginia?
Well, I can tell you specifically why he's not. He does not want to be a part of the possibility of that protest coming unglued. He doesn't. And this is a case where I must agree with him. They need to keep their mouths shut. People need to use their own judgment. Use your own judgment and exercise what you think is right for you to do. But there's really nothing either of those two could add to this conversation or to the conversation down there that might not be taken wrongly and used against us.
You're absolutely right, Larry, and I think that Trump is doing something about it. All the things that he's doing are doing something about it. This is a swamp,
right?
And when it gets to the point where it has manifested itself like it has there, you've got a local issue. What Trump is doing is he's putting power back in the hands of the people daily. It's our job to take that power and do something with it.
Absolutely.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, ma'am.
What about, if it's for another topic time, what about when you have doctors ask you if you have a firearm?
Well, I'm going to tell you my feelings. I would ask the doctor, why do you want to ask that? I don't particularly know why a doctor would have a right to know that for me, unless he's treating me for some mental interest.
That's an absolute violation of your privacy. And that's
a violation of privacy.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now, if he's treating you for mental issues, then yes, I guess he's got a right to. But barring you being under mental care, I don't think they have no right to ask you that question.
I think even if you're under mental care, you're still an American until you're innocent until proven guilty. And if you're not in a mental institution, that's none of their business.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You bet. All right, folks. With that, Tim, I want to thank you. As always, we will have you back, and we'll try the next time to be more deliberate into what people can do as far as training. Try to get people better educated on training and what they can do themselves.
Yeah.
What's your number once again, Tim?
Always a pleasure, Larry. I really appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate everything you're doing for freedom.
Well, thank you. Now, what's your phone number so they can get in touch with you again?
It's area code 501-470-9599. That's 470-9599. area code 501.
All right, folks, with that, I'm going to bid you good day. Thanks again to Tim, Mary Ellen. You take it. We're out of here. All right, dear.
Great talking to you.
Thanks. People who are on the conference call line, we are going to have a conference call immediately after I wrap this up. So I'm just going to say to everybody, if you can do anything to help Larry, his PayPal is nicholslive@aol.com. He needs something every single day. So, and otherwise you can go to the website nicholslive.com, and there are other ways to donate there. Do something if you can. Greatly appreciate it if you can try to do something. I will put Tim's phone number in the description box underneath the video before I close it out. So I did post it in the chat at one point, and I started posting it and didn't finish. Let me finish doing that, and then I will hang up and we will be ready to rock and roll on the conference call. So thanks for being here, folks, and God bless you. And we'll talk. I'm talking to the people on the YouTube. We'll talk tomorrow, and at the same time, 2 Central, 3 Eastern. God bless you. Bye.